When we think of the world's richest countries, the usual names that pop up are Saudi Arabia with its oil, South Africa with its gold, or maybe the United States with its vast farmland and tech empires. But what if I tell you that some of the wealthiest nations on earth don't have any of that? No oil, no gold, no massive landmass or natural bounty, and yet they're richer by per capita than most resource rich giants. Luxembourg, Singapore, and Switzerland. These three countries that, by conventional wisdom, shouldn't be rich. They have little land, few natural resources, and small populations. Yet they top global charts in income, innovation, and influence. So, how do they do it? What secret advantage do they share? And what can the rest of the world learn from them? Stick around, because this isn't just a list of rich countries. This is a rethink of what wealth actually means in the 21st century. For most of history, wealth has been tied to the ground, literally. Dig it up, grow it, or drill into it. That was the model. More resources, more money. It worked for oil-rich countries like Saudi Arabia. It worked for diamond exporters like Botswana. It worked until it didn't. Look at Venezuela, home to the world's largest proven oil reserves, yet devastated by hyperinflation and economic collapse. Or the Democratic Republic of Congo, sitting on vast deposits of cobalt, copper, and diamonds, yet ranked among the poorest nations. The problem? It's called the resource curse. When money flows easily from natural resources, it often weakens governance. Corruption spikes, innovation stalls, and institutions rot from the inside. In contrast, countries that lacked these easy riches were forced to take a different route. They had to educate their people, build strong institutions, and attract investment through stability and trust, not just what lay underground. Luxembourg, Singapore, and Switzerland are proof of this model. Each chose a unique path, but all three placed their bets not on resources, but on resilience and reputation. Let's start with a country most people overlook, but which quietly manages trillions in global finance. Luxembourg. Luxembourg is small, so small you can drive across it in under an hour. It has no coastline, no oil, and no vast farmlands. Yet in 2024, it boasted the highest GDP per capita in the European Union, over $135,000. How? It all began after World War II. After the Second World War, when all of Europe was dusted to the ground, Luxembourg recognized that it couldn't outproduce larger countries. Instead, it chose to outmaneuver them. Rather than concentrating on physical goods, it focused on what could be stored, scaled, and shipped digitally and financially. It wanted to become a safe home for global capital. But how do you do that when you're small and landlocked? You become the smartest, most stable place for money to live. One key decision changed everything for Luxembourg: the creation of a favorable legal framework in 1985 known as Undertakings for Collective Investment in Transferable Securities. Let's understand this interesting fact. At the time, Europe's investment landscape was fragmented. Most mutual funds were locked within their national borders, constrained by complex and inconsistent rules. Investors faced limited options, and fund managers couldn't scale across the continent easily. But this legal system changed all that. It introduced a passporting system for money. This literally means if a fund met the standards in one EU country, it could be marketed and sold across the entire European Union without having to jump through more regulatory hoops. Luxembourg saw the potential and moved fast. It was among the first countries to fully adopt and implement the directive, building a streamlined legal and operational infrastructure to attract international asset managers. It wasn't just about compliance, it was about convenience, certainty, and confidence. The result? Major global players like BlackRock, Vanguard, and Fidelity quickly chose Luxembourg as their base for EU funds. Why? Because Luxembourg offered legal certainty under EU law, tax efficiency, a multilingual, highly educated workforce, and a stable political environment. This decision paid off massively. By 2024, Luxembourg was home to more than 5.5 trillion euros in assets under UCITS compliant funds, cementing its role as Europe's premier investment fund hub. In essence, Luxembourg didn't just play by the rules, it helped write them and then built a world-class ecosystem around them. But competition is intensifying. In 2024, Ireland surpassed Luxembourg in the European ETF market, managing 1.6 trillion euros compared to Luxembourg's 266 billion euros. So, did Luxembourg panic? No, it adapted. In 2025, it rolled out sweeping reforms, cutting subscription taxes, simplifying fund structures, and doubling down on green finance and digital banking. It launched initiatives in blockchain-powered finance, tokenized securities, and AI-powered compliance, becoming a sandbox for the future of fintech. Luxembourg doesn't just manage wealth, it future-proofs it. So from a medieval duchy to a digital vault, it shows what brains, trust, and adaptability can do. But it's not alone. Thousands of kilometers to the east lies another economic marvel. One that had even fewer advantages, yet climbed even higher. No gold, no oil, no hinterland to grow food or build factories. In fact, when it gained independence, many doubted it would even survive. And yet today, it's a glittering metropolis, a global financial hub, and one of the richest nations on earth. Let's travel to Singapore, the island city-state that turned its biggest weaknesses into world-class strengths. In 1965, Singapore was dismissed as a poor, mosquito-infested island with no resources, clean water, or hinterland. Even its independence was accidental. But today, as per the IMF's World Economic Outlook, published in October 2024, Singapore has a GDP per capita of almost $90,000, higher than the UK, France, and even Japan. So, what actually happened that changed Singapore's fate? It started with a vision, led by Lee Kuan Yew. He understood that Singapore couldn't survive by relying on natural wealth. So, it became useful to the world. It first transformed into a global shipping and logistics hub. Why? Because 80% of global trade by volume moves by sea. And Singapore sits right on the Strait of Malacca, one of the world's busiest trade choke points. As of 2024, the Port of Singapore has achieved a historic milestone by handling around 41 million cargo containers, surpassing the previous year's number of 39 million. This record-breaking performance solidifies its position as the world's largest container transshipment hub, with approximately 90% of its container throughput dedicated to transshipment activities. But it didn't stop there. Singapore invested heavily in education, infrastructure, and, critically, governance. Corruption was rooted out, bureaucracy was made efficient, and business made as easy as possible. It became a tax haven for global firms, but with the twist of ironclad regulation and world-class talent. Building on this momentum, by the 2000s, Singapore reinvented itself again, this time as a global tech and finance powerhouse. It attracted more than 1,500 multinational companies and rose to become the third largest forex trading hub in the world, behind only London and New York. It also surpassed China in foreign exchange instruments with $929 billion, which is 6 times that of China. Yet perhaps its boldest leap came in food and water security. Despite importing over 90% of its food, Singapore launched the ambitious 30 by 30 initiative, aiming to produce 30% of its nutritional needs domestically by 2030 using high-tech urban farming. It built the Agri-Food Innovation Park, where vertical farms, AI, and bioengineering pushed the boundaries of what's possible in a concrete jungle. So, from swamp to skyline, Singapore proves that being small isn't a weakness if you play it smart. Now, let's head west to a landlocked nation with no ports, limited resources, and a quiet presence on the world stage. Yet, it quietly manages more private wealth than any other country on earth. Welcome to Switzerland, where precision meets prosperity and trust is a national asset. Switzerland, a landlocked nation without any significant natural resources. Yet in 2024, it had a GDP per capita of over $106,000 and quietly held more private wealth than any other country. Its secret, trust and precision. It all began during the Second World War. While Europe was engulfed in wars, Switzerland stayed neutral. That neutrality made it a safe haven for capital and built a banking reputation that endures. As a result, individuals, businesses, and even governments began parking their assets in Swiss banks, trusting that their money would remain untouched, undisclosed, and safe from global volatility. By the mid-20th century, Swiss banks had earned a reputation for discretion, confidentiality, and financial security, cementing the country's identity as the world's most trusted vault. And decades later, that legacy of trust and security remains intact. According to the 5th Deloitte International Wealth Management Center ranking 2024, Switzerland maintains its position as the global leader in cross-border private wealth management, overseeing approximately $2.2 trillion. But Switzerland isn't just about secret bank accounts. It's a powerhouse of precision, research, and development. Companies like Rolex and Novartis represent precision and advanced R&D. This commitment to excellence pays off. In March 2025 alone, Switzerland exported over 27.6 billion Swiss francs in pharmaceutical products, second only to Germany in Europe. So, from luxury watches to cutting-edge medicine, Switzerland's influence extends far beyond finance. So, what do Luxembourg, Singapore, and Switzerland have in common? None are large, none are resource-rich, none dominates militarily or territorially. And yet, they're among the wealthiest and most respected countries on earth because they didn't build economies on coal or oil. They built on strategy, stability, and smart governance. Luxembourg turned size into an advantage by becoming Europe's financial brain. Singapore became a global hub by relentlessly focusing on people and logistics. Switzerland made precision, neutrality, edge, and trust its national brand and became the world's safest. So the next time someone says a country is too small, too poor, or too isolated to succeed, tell them about Luxembourg's funds, tell them about Singapore's ports, tell them about Switzerland's vaults. Because in the 21st century, true wealth isn't mined, it's designed. Enjoyed this video? Like, share, and subscribe for more stories on global economics, power shifts, and the hidden engines of modern wealth. Let's rethink the world together.